and gentlemen, we are the DK Experience. You just heard the James Brown classic, I Got You, I Feel Good. We are very excited to be playing for you guys, opening up this amazing event today on such an important day. And yeah, we hope this music can kick off the mood. So our next tune is going to be a John Coltrane inspired kind of suite. It's going to take you through 3 movements. We'll explain the significance of them after we play them. So enjoy. Thank you. welcome to the microphone my great friend and pianist for the DK Experience, Mr. Keller Fritz.
Hi, thanks, Zach. So great to be playing at this event. So powerful to so many people across the nation. The first song you heard from us, as David mentioned, was the great James Brown song, I Got You. Second was our Coltrane Suite, which first featured Alabama by John Coltrane. That song has huge significance for this day. John Coltrane wrote that song after Martin Luther King gave a speech about the tragic deaths that happened in Alabama, and it was so powerful because he based his notes of his saxophone off of how Dr. King gave the speech to his church, and we knew we had to play it when we were thinking of what song we had to do. The second part was Love Supreme Part 1, another Coltrane staple, huge, powerful music from him, and then Part 2, Resolutions, also on that Love Supreme album. Our next song is going to be Mercy, Mercy, Mercy by the great Cannonball Adderley, and we'll get to it. Thank you so much again for coming out.
event's going to be amazing. Once again, Keller Fritz on the piano, everyone. We have my good friend from Erie High School, Ben Egan, on the bass. The magnificent Simon Van Hatten on drums. My name is David Pritchard. We are the DK Experience, and we hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Eric Benestead, principal here at Silver Creek High School, and I'd like to just thank our performing artists this morning, the DK Experience. That was featuring Silver Creek High School students along with Erie High School and Longmont High School represented, David Pritchard, Keller Fritz. We also have Simon Van Hatten and Ben Egan. So give it up for them. I'll tell you what, not only are these kids incredible musicians, but these kids are incredible people as well. Let me tell you a little bit about both David and Keller's senior capstone projects. Is that both of these students are members of our Silver Creek Leadership Academy, which is coordinated by Carrie Adams, who's a longtime supporter of this event and many others throughout our community. And David's capstone project is that he's been leading opportunities for students to learn jazz improvisation techniques at all of the local middle schools and opening that up to any student who wanted to participate. So again, the arts are alive and well in St. Vrain Valley schools, and they're in terrific hands with our teachers, our instructors, and especially our students like David, and bringing those opportunities to all students. Let's give him a round of applause for that. And then Keller on the keys over there. Keller has been working with a school in Kamari, Nepal, and he's raised money through benefit concerts that the DK Experience has been a part of. And over the course of the pandemic, this school in Nepal has not been able to have the typical funding that they do to pay their teachers, for school supplies, for supports or otherwise. And because of that, Keller has committed his time, his energy, his resource to provide teachers with a salary. Not only that, but to provide for opportunities for student learning, amongst many other things. So that being said, let's give Keller a round of applause for his action. And truly, when you look at Silver Creek and all of the things that our kids are involved with here, we're walking in the shadow of Dr. King's dream. And by creating a better community, by creating partnerships within our community, by creating opportunities that many other students don't have across Colorado, across the United States, our kids certainly have a competitive advantage as they move on into the future and choose whatever it is they want to pursue. And in the name of doing this, community service, community partnership is a very strong asset. And these kids are living that and working that every single day. You'll see our Silver Creek Leadership Academy students here supporting the event today. And I'd like to just give a general welcome and then also welcome to our guests that are tuning in online. It's great to be back together. I do understand the health concerns and a little bit of the lay of the land. We are currently under a mask order from the Boulder County Public Health and Environment, and we appreciate your support in keeping everyone safe and wearing your mask over your nose and mouth as we're joined here today in an open event for our public. And then also, if you need to use the restrooms, just go right outside the hallway here, go down just past the cafeteria, they'll be on the right. You all know where the exits at and you know where the entrances are. So if there's, for any reason, we need to initiate any emergencies or otherwise, we're here to support you. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Masters of Ceremony and Facilitator today, Reverend James Ray. And Reverend Ray is the senior pastor at the Second Baptist Church in Boulder, Colorado. And the Second Baptist Church has been in continuous operation for 114 years this year. And it's my pleasure to welcome back Reverend Ray as he provides us with facilitation of today's events. Once again, thank you for being here and joining us here at Silver Creek High School, a part of St. Vrain Valley School District, as we celebrate the life, the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
So as Principal Finnestead mentioned, this truly is a wonderful day. And I certainly want to welcome each of you. And of course, we have official welcome coming here shortly, but certainly good to have each of you here today. And I'm honored to be present here with you today, and more specifically to facilitate on such a wonderful occasion. I am Reverend James Ray, the senior pastor of Second Baptist Church here, the historic Second Baptist Church here in Boulder. And it's just wonderful to see some of my members out here. And for those members that are joining online, certainly want to welcome you as well. To the mayor, Mayor Peck, and to Mr. Finnestead, Eric, my good friend, and to Minister Glenda Robinson, who happens to be associate minister at Second Baptist Church, and to all of the clergy, if we have any clergy here, to Pastor Juanita Matthews, who's going to be doing our invocation here momentarily. She also happens to be the sister of Minister Glenda Robinson, and to our VIPs, our very important people here, you, our guests. I'm again honored to stand before you and to facilitate and to be your master of ceremonies here today on a beautiful day, this day that God has truly made. And I pray that we will be able to celebrate the life and the love and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King together in such a way that will, allow all of us to take something from today's events. I also just want to thank real quick the staff and the wonderful students here at Silver Creek High School for hosting us here today. Thank you all for coming out today and to join us as we honor and celebrate the legacy of a prominent preacher, the drum major for justice, a prophetic voice, a freedom fighter, and that is the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So our theme this year is the dream, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And this theme compels us to at least think about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. In other words, to think about the past, the present, and the future. Now, looking back on the past can be a healthy practice. In fact, in some instances, looking back on yesterday enables us to analyze, whether things went well, and to also analyze those things that perhaps did not go so well. But all with the hopes to eliminate the bad and to perpetuate the good as we go forward. So looking back can be therapeutic, I guess is what I'm saying. Like when we utilize our memories of loved ones who are no longer living in order to find joy and peace and comfort. Looking back on yesterday helps us to discover lessons learned that can benefit us both today and tomorrow. So today we look back on yesterday, reflecting on the life, love, legacy, and the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., with hopes that his dreams can be lived out today so that a brighter future can occur with us all. So today we will hear wisdom from foot soldiers of yesterday and today. We'll hear free-spirited voices of our young people who represent tomorrow. Our spirits will be uplifted by some old-time gospel songs, sung in a cappella. We'll recognize and award and honor those whom honor and recognition is due. In fact, the Bible encourages us to honor one another. We'll hear poetry and we'll witness dancing by our young people. We'll be connected to the wonderful work of a photojournalist, Ernest Withers, who captured the civil rights movement and the public life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with photos like none other. And we'll hear an engaging keynote address that will serve not only to inform, but to hopefully transform. And when all is said and done, we invite you to ask yourself one question that flowed from the very lips of Dr. Martin Luther King himself. And that question will be, or should be, how then shall I serve? Let us begin our time together by joining together in singing what is referred to as the National Negro Anthem. And you can find that on page 5 of your program. And that is Lift Every Voice and Sing, composed by James Weldon Johnson. And now I'm going to ask that our Director of Music come forward and lead us in that. Thank you so much. So at this time, I'm going to welcome to the stage Pastor Juanita, who is, as I mentioned before, the very sister of Minister Glenda Robinson, and she will now lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, Pastor Ray. Good morning.
Good morning.
Greetings from the City of the Angels and from Long Beach, California. Please bow your heads with me in a word of prayer. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, God, you have brought us thus far on the way. Almighty God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, you are the great I am. How excellent is your name in all the earth. Dear God, we reverence your name today, and we declare your glory in this place. Thank you, Father, for your amazing grace and your steadfast love. We are so grateful, God, that your mercy endures forever. Thank you that you've already smiled on us this morning, and you've already blessed us to gather together in this beautiful place. Thank you for allowing us once again, Father, to celebrate the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Oh God, we appreciate the rich history that we share in all of the complexities, challenges, and changes of life. God, you have kept us through them all. Lord, we humbly ask your abundant blessings on this assembly today and your divine touch of love on everyone assembled in this place. God, we thank you for life. Thank you for sustaining us, Lord, through all of life's ups and downs. You brought us once again to sit at the table of brotherhood. Thank you for giving us the tenacity to keep the King dream alive. Lord, may we continue to march with the cadence of drum majors for peace and stand as ambassadors of love. Thank you for so loving us, Lord, and for always being our refuge and strength in times of trouble. We offer this humble prayer in the powerful, strong, and majestic name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Amen. So be it.
So at this time, we're going to have a proclamation that's going to be read or presented this morning. And I'm honored to bring up now the mayor of this fine city of Longmont, Mayor Joan Peck. So I'm going to ask if Mayor Joan Peck can join us and join me as I welcome her to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. I'm humbled to be asked to address you honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy. Martin Luther King loved his people. He was a Baptist minister and the son of a courageous Baptist minister. He took seriously his role of pastor to his flock, to lead, to protect, to nourish. But Martin Luther King was above all a man of all people. The 60s were a tumultuous decade. As a lily-white teenager, I was stunned at the images from Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, etc., that I was seeing on our local news. And then I was angry at the lack of our social justice system. Was anyone doing anything about this? And then I heard Martin Luther King Jr. speak, and I was inspired. He studied and applied Gandhi's principles of nonviolence. He also followed Gandhi's strategy of making one's enemies be what they say they are. If you say you're a nation that stands for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and liberty and justice for all, then you must pass laws and enforce laws that do just that. We have passed the laws in this country, but are we actually enacting them and following Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy of justice for all? King well knew he would sooner or later pay for his courage with his life. He was nourished by those who stood by him, and he inspired millions who had followed him. It's up to us to continue Martin Luther King Jr.'s fight for freedom, dignity, fairness, and justice. I would like to present a proclamation from the city of Longmont. I'm very proud of the city of Longmont that we give this proclamation to this august community. And I will read it. It is a proclamation designating January 16th through the 22nd, 2022 as honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Week in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas January 17th, 2022 marks the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on which we honor Dr. King's unwavering fight for the absence of oppression and the presence of opportunity for all, who sacrificed to sow the seeds for a movement of peace, equality, and justice. And whereas across the nation, in the state of Colorado and in the city of Longmont, honoring Dr. King has become a week of service within our communities. Events held throughout Boulder County are made possible by the commitment and dedication of many volunteers from diverse backgrounds. The combined efforts of these volunteers are a fulfillment of Dr. King's dream and highlight the importance of the civil rights movement and the need to take action. And whereas Ms. Judy Huston has made a commitment to our outstanding community service in sharing the importance of a civil rights movement, Dr. King's legacy, and keeping the dream alive for future generations throughout Boulder County. Now therefore I, Joan Peck, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me, and the City and Council and the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim the week of January 6th through the 22nd, 2022, as honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Week in Longmont, and invite all to attend this exciting program honoring Dr. King. Thank you for being here.
Congratulations, Mayor Peck. And thank you for, I'm accepting this on behalf of Judy Houston. Judy is ill today and unable to be here, but the incredible work that she has done with the Longmont Multicultural Action Committee, the Boulder County branch of the NAACP, is remarkable, and so we wish her a speedy recovery. I graciously accept this because many years ago, I was named as the founder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Week, and for the City Council and for you, Mayor, to continue that legacy. I'm most grateful. Thank you.
So again, we would like to thank Mayor Peck for being here today and for presenting us with that wonderful proclamation. I'm also going to take this time to give an official welcome. Do you feel welcome yet? Well, if you don't feel welcome, then I'm going to make you feel welcome, okay? Welcome, okay? But we're going to do more than that. I'm honored to stand before you and to even just say that one word, welcome. We're welcoming you this morning to walk with us, welcoming you to an experience, welcoming you to think about the past, welcoming you to interrogate your own hearts and minds about today and how you tie into the things that will be shared with you today. We're going to welcome you to think about the future, how you might be able to tie yourself into not only the dream of Martin Luther King, but the work, the hope, the love that he had for all of humankind. So I want to take this time right now to acknowledge Mayor Joan Peck, and also I'm going to ask do we have any other elected city officials that are here with us today to please stand. I'm going to ask Mayor Peck if you can stand as well, dear heart, please. Do we have any other elected officials that are with us here today? Wonderful. Thank you. And to all of the clergy that we might have in our presence, do we have any clergy that are with us here today? May you please stand. May we give you a warm welcome as well. Thank you so much. And to all of you, our VIPs, that is our guests, thank you. Give yourself a round of applause and welcome yourself, all right? On behalf of the local Boulder chapter of the NAACP and myself, I simply again would like to say welcome, and we pray and hope that you will enjoy the remainder of this program.
It's always a joy for me to stand with this man right here. We've been partners in this work for some time, and thank you. I just want to publicly say, Eric, thank you for all that you've been to me. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience to hear about the Withers collection that has come to Boulder County. It's housed at the Dairy Arts Center in Boulder, but it's for all of Boulder County to see, and we saw it yesterday, and it is amazing. So true to Dr. Withers' motto, which was always pictures tell the story. They really do tell the story. I want you to sit back, relax, and you're in for a treat this morning as we focus on our pillars that were given to us by Pastor Ray several years ago. They're tribute, education, solidarity, service, and celebration. So today we're celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr. This represents Dr. King's dream as we walk through and talk about the dream, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And so we've seen some victories and some defeats. Amen? Would you agree? I'm a preacher, so you could say amen. It's all right to say amen. So we continue to strive for what Dr. King called the beloved community. In the process, we're trying to do better. We're trying to be better. Some of us are, anyway. But these events provide us the opportunity to do just that.
Dr. King would have been 93 years old today, and the purpose of these events is to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King. And ultimately, he gave the ultimate sacrifice for the cause of equality, for the cause of justice, for the cause of equal rights. He gave his life for that cause. And that still remains a goal for each of us today, to give what we can to improve our communities, to build upon that idea of a beloved community, and to lift one another up. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow Dr. King has left a legacy that spans over 3 generations. As a humble minister and young man from Atlanta, with a young family in tow, he was asked to lead the Montgomery Improvement Association. This group was formed by black ministers in an effort to expose the racial inequalities and segregation occurring not only on public transportation, but throughout communities. This would lead King and the MIA to be one of the founding organizations to catapult the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The SCLC would be instrumental in leveraging their influence and ultimately lead to the desegregation of cities throughout the United States. Dr. King and the SCLC also championed the desegregation of public transportation and schools. Working in conjunction with the Big Five, which were known as the NAACP, the eldest of all of the organizations, the National Urban League, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the Congress on Racial Equality, King and his members within the SCLC would go on to lead efforts such as the March on Washington for Jobs and for Freedom, the March from Selma to Montgomery, resulting in the Voting Rights Act of 1965 in the United States, opposition to working conditions of sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee. King was a champion for the poor, an opponent of war. He was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, a father, a father, a husband, a brother, and a friend and guide to so many. After giving his I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C., he met with President Kennedy and Vice President Lyndon Johnson, thus laying forth a pathway towards equality for all Americans. And these hard-fought battles of yesterday still resonate today, yet always give us hope for a better future. Speaking to a group of college students, Dr. King shared the quote, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." Nothing could hobble his approach. His speech at this time was to encourage kids not to fall victim, or for us to fall victim to pessimism, but to maintain positivity and to maintain with moving forward with hope, courage, and with dignity, regardless of the challenges that we may face or that you may face or that we may encounter as a community, as a country, or as a world. The vigor of optimism, the eternity of hope will always win the day. Optimism and hope is to be cherished as we walk together in celebration of Dr. King, his legacy of improving lives, communities, our country, and our world. And we'd like to thank and acknowledge a few more people that are here today and have made this program possible. We'd like to thank our St. Vrain Valley School Board members. We'd also like to thank our Superintendent of St. Vrain Valley Schools, Dr. Don Haddad.
Is he here?
Dr. Haddad is here this morning, I believe.
Thank you.
Dr. Haddad's a champion for all kids. And I am privileged to work here in St. Vrain and spread that message and provide opportunity for kids. Our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Jackie Capuchin, and also our Area Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Dina Profetti-Dini, thank you for your leadership and nurturing of students and kids throughout the St. Vrain Valley. We'd like to thank the City of Longmont and the Longmont Multicultural Action Committee, the St. Vrain Valley School District. A special thank you to Silver Creek High School, the Silver Creek Leadership Academy, and Carrie Adams for the many years of support of this program. Thank you to the Longmont Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for contributions making this event possible, the NAACP Boulder County Branch, Lexmark, the Longmont Police Department, who's here in attendance today. We have an excellent school resource officer, Officer Ryan Douglas. Thank you for all that you do to keep us safe and to support our kids. Thank you to our Mayor Joan Peck, the City Council representatives for the City of Longmont, our elected officials, of course, that are here today.
And then we say thank you and welcome to our program participants, and a special thanks to those who've made the long trip to Colorado to share their stories and their legacy with us. Our keynote speaker today, Attorney Rodney Strong from Atlanta, Georgia, representatives from the Withers family and collection, Ms. Rosalind Withers, and her team. We're so grateful to have her here. Thank you so much. Welcome to our guests. We have some from the Ron Settles Memorial Foundation. That's our family who we lost our nephew Ron exactly 41 years ago in a very tragic incident. And to all of those of you who have helped to make today's event possible. That includes every single one of you who are here to witness this with us and for us. Thank you. And welcome to each of you. We just thank you for joining us. We would like to thank you for being and giving your generous donations. Many of you have done that and made these events possible. Also, I'd like to say if you'd like to still make a donation, you may do so by going to the NAACP Boulder County Branch.org website and making a donation there, earmarking the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. We hope to continue to do these for years to come. So, I'm going to invite the a cappella singers up as I introduce you. So throughout the civil rights movement, music played an important and critical role in promoting the message of equality and the interminable spirit that was endured. The music of the time period told a story that harkens back to the early field hollers of call and response, giving way to the early published Negro spirituals. A cappella music is the root of our heritage. It is the rhythm of movement all of its own, hand clapping, toe tapping, foot stumping movement to the rhythm of the beat. This music maintains a legacy deeply rooted in an abiding faith in God and the prospect for what better is to come. We started from nothing, and God allowed us to make something from that, and for that we are certainly grateful. And we share with you today the 2022 a cappella singers presenting a musical tribute to the freedom songs and Negro spirituals that transcend yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we want to dedicate this music to our alto. We had one alto, Tracy Busby, who practiced with us up until about 2 weeks ago. Tracy passed away during that period, and so she's not able to be with us. We thank Mrs. William Miller for stepping in and being that alto as standing in. And so we remember Tracy Busby today.
Give thanks to the Lord for he is good. Oh, give thanks to the Lord for he is good. His mercy endureth forever and ever. Oh, give thanks to the Lord for he is good, good. Oh, give thanks to the Lord for he is good. Oh, give thanks to the Lord for he is good. His mercy endureth forever and ever. Oh, give thanks to the Lord for he is good. And now we sing, we sing, oh, give thanks to the Lord for he is good. And now we sing, we sing, oh, give thanks to the Lord for he is good. Oh, oh, give thanks. Oh, oh, give thanks. Oh, oh, give thanks. He's good. He's good. He's good. He's good. He's good. He's good. Oh, oh, give thanks. 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 Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, troubles of the world, troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, troubles of the world, troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, troubles of the world, troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother. I'm going to live with God. I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother. I'm going to live with God. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, troubles of the world, troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, troubles of the world, troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. No more, no more weeping and a wailing. No more, no more weeping and a wailing. No more, no more weeping and a wailing. I'm going to live with God. No more, no more weeping and a wailing. No more, no more weeping and a wailing. No more, no more weeping and a wailing. I'm going to live with God. fare thee well, fare thee well. No man cannot hinder me, no man cannot hinder me. No man cannot hinder me, no man cannot hinder me. Ooh, 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 ooh. When I get to heaven, gonna wear a robe, no man cannot hinder me. When I get to heaven, gonna wear a robe, no man cannot hinder me. When I get to heaven, gonna wear a robe, no man cannot hinder me. When I get to heaven, gonna wear a robe, no man cannot hinder me. Gonna walk all over the streets of gold, no man cannot hinder me. Gonna walk all over the streets of gold, no man cannot hinder me. 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 No man cannot
At this time, it's a pleasure to introduce our Living Legend Award on behalf of the Boulder County branch of the NAACP, on behalf of the Martin Luther King Planning Committee. And as we looked at opportunities to celebrate those within our community this year, the answer was very close, as the answer was sitting there on the committee with us. And we took a moment, and over the course of the last several months, I've gotten to know Dr. Thomas Wyndham, and he's shared stories of his past and upbringing and the opportunities and challenges of which he's had the benefit of having in his life, and what he shared with his community. And when I told Dr. Wyndham, well, we'd like to honor you, and I think you have a story to tell, and a story of which all we could benefit from hearing a bit more of, he said, well, what are you telling me? You're going to make me yesterday in this program? And I said, no, Dr. Wyndham, that's not it at all. I think really what we need to stop and do and recognize, Dr. Wyndham, is that all of the students of which you've impacted over the years in your teaching, the scholarships in which you've provided, the opportunities for support in pursuing an education amongst kids and within this community of Boulder and St. Vrain is second to none. And that's why we want to honor you today. And so, friends, families, join us as we take a look at the life and the contributions of which Dr. Thomas Wyndham has provided here within our communities.
I honor you, I admire you, I thank you for the many contributions to the Boulder County area. I want you to go back, because you've had this interesting life that's taken you on quite a journey.
Thank you, Glenda. May I first express my appreciation and gratitude for this opportunity to sit here with you. You yourself are a very special person, having marched in a significant march in Memphis yourself. I grew up in the South Bronx, stayed in the South Bronx till I was the ripe age of 17 when I took off for New Mexico to attend New Mexico Highlands University as a freshman. I do come from a musical family. My mother's a beautiful alto voice, and Daddy could pat a foot, he could keep the rhythm. I got my master's degree in psychology, minored in philosophy and music and speech.
Was it within that time or between that time that you had the chance to go to DC?
It was between my sophomore and junior years. I was working in a factory in Brooklyn. United Auto Workers was one of the organizations that helped to sponsor and encourage the March on Washington. Those of us who elected to travel with the United Auto Workers to Washington, D.C. had that opportunity, and that's how I happened to get on that bus that wonderful morning to march, to sing, have celebration and fellowship. And at that time, the federal government was not terribly excited about the prospect of this march in Washington. In fact, emissaries of President Kennedy reached out to El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, to ask him if he could stop it. and he said, I can't stop it because I didn't start it.
I know the media was downplaying the fact that there were in excess of 250,000 people. And I remember the signs were marching for jobs and freedom and peace and unity.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Many people share the misconception that the march was about sitting at lunch counters and about integration. The march was about economic opportunity, knowing that economic opportunity was the key to participating more fully in the American dream. To see people come out of their homes and applaud as the buses arrived in the city, it felt like we were delivering something, that we were bringing something, that we were coming to help deliver this promise.
And hope. People in wheelchairs and walkers, because there was this hope that hung in front of them, that freedom is on its way.
Yes.
There's going to be something that we can hold on to. We need that hope.
We can continue to have hope if we can encourage ourselves and others to use another four-letter word, and that is vote. If we don't exercise our franchise to participate as full citizens through the vote, tomorrow's going to look dramatically different. I accepted a job teaching psychology at Nebraska Wesleyan University. 2 years after that, they said, Thomas, it's time for you to go finish that doctorate, Boulder, Colorado. My wife Paula and I arrived here in 1969. Paula and I were married for 53 years and were honored with 3 children.
You've done a lot of good stuff here in these 53 years.
One of the things that we were able to benefit from was the community that had already been established by those who came before us. Particularly Dr. and Mrs. Nylon embraced me because you couldn't be black on the campus in Boulder and not be stopped by one or both of them.
Right.
Dr. Nylon extended the invitation for me to teach in the Black Studies program when it was just getting off the ground. I crafted a course, Culture, Racism, and Alienation, the cornerstone of which was the works of Frantz Fanon, sprinkled in other authors, literary figures, philosophers, and Aretha Franklin and Curtis Mayfield.
Well, I want to hear more from you. Keep talking.
1996, started the SOARS program up in NCAR. SOARS represents Significant Opportunities in Atmospheric Research and Science. The goal was to recruit students from these underrepresented, marginalized communities to participate in internships at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. It was the first program in the nation to afford students multiple summers. I happened to be on the School of Education's Dean's Advisory Board, was looking for something significant to do. The Charles and Mildred Nylon Scholarship it's a 4-year scholarship awarded to an incoming student from a community of color or a BIPOC student or first-generation student to honor the legacy of Charles and Mildred Nylon.
And these people embodied what Dr. King always referred to as the beloved community.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Yes.
Working together.
We now have this Center for African and African American Studies, and that's the message. Rediscover and share the narrative of Africa and the African diaspora in an honest and respectful way, which includes all people. All people, yeah.
I want to talk about the greatest challenges that you've had.
I've had good days and better days. Without the good days, the better days really aren't as meaningful. And for me, it's part of, the human spirit. Some of my good days was the first day of school for each of my children, because I did not want that to happen, although I couldn't stop it, because I knew that they were going to an institution where we would have to do extra special things to communicate to them and help them understand that they were worthy, deserving of love, not inferior. Those were the good days, and what made them better days was that we had the capacity, with the help of community, to help them recognize and embrace themselves as full-bodied, capable, competent people. Anything that I've accomplished because of the encouragement, the help, and the support of many, many other people. I thank you. I also thank the greater community, and particularly in this instance, the Boulder County NAACP.
Dr. Wyndham, would you please come down front and join me on stage just so the people can see you.
we simply want to say thank you for being a part of this beloved community and for the incredible work that you have done as a living legend. And we can't say it enough. Thank you, thank you. We love you, we appreciate you, and pray God's blessings upon you.
Thank you. Okay, so next we're going to have a dance tribute, but I want to tell you a little bit about the two young ladies that are going to be dancing for us, or presenting their gifts to us this morning. Naisha James Davis is a multidisciplinary artist, and she's a dancer, a model, actress, DJ. She's got formal training, which includes a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Arts in Philadelphia. She's got extensive professional experience dancing, modeling, and is the face of the campaign and commercials for national and international brands. And then also we have Constance Harris, and she's a dance fusion artist who specializes in teaching, performing, and choreographing. She specializes in styles grounded in Africanist aesthetics, focusing on traditional and contemporary African dance, hip hop, and house. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Cultural Anthropology from Dickinson. Now, I want to ask you to join me in welcoming them to the stage.
every hamlet, from every state and every city. We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spirit. Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Let's give it up one more time for him. Come on. There we go. It's my pleasure at this time to recognize a student who has been very involved in demonstrating leadership throughout the St. Vrain Valley over the course of the last couple of years. And may I have Rocky Kataria come join me on stage at this time. Please welcome Rocky Kataria. Rocky's being recognized by the Martin Luther King Jr. Committee of St. Vrain Valley and Boulder County. Rocky has performed outstanding work alongside our learning services team to provide opportunities for student learning and support. Her Silver Creek Leadership capstone, her project, her senior year here, has been to provide access to introductory computer programming classes for students who may not have otherwise been able to engage in them. The opportunities for these students are empowering them now and well into the future. Rocky truly represents today and tomorrow. She's been instrumental in bringing EcoCycle and waste reduction to Silver Creek High School. Her advocacy for this project has seen her working with adults, liaising with officials, creating instructional videos, supporting kids at lunch to sort their waste, and ultimately helping to create a more sustainable Silver Creek and a more sustainable St. Vrain and a more sustainable planet. She serves as a student ambassador to the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, is involved in robotics at the Innovation Center, and promotes the ideals of inclusion in all that she pursues through her creation of opportunities for student learning and strengthening student commitment to bettering themselves and their community. And on behalf of the Boulder County Martin Luther King Jr. Committee, we would like to recognize and award Rocky Kataria for leading and living his dream to create a better community, a better country, a better world. Rocky, I'd like to congratulate you and read to you this award. The 2022 Boulder County Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Planning Committee presents Outstanding Student Award to Rocky Kataria for exemplary work in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the St. Vrain Valley School District by Minister Glenda S. Robinson, Chair, January 16th, 2022. Congratulations. I get the privilege of every day working with wonderful kids. Rocky is a shining example of that. Her colleagues, the students in our Leadership Academy, our National Honor Society, our Universal High School have contributed thousands upon thousands of hours of community service to help, most recently, victims in tragic wildfires that have impacted our county, both this year and in years past. Our kids have supported international governmental organizations. Our kids have supported local nonprofits and businesses. and they've raised thousands of dollars to support their community. And it's a pleasure. And once again, I'd like to thank Rocky for her work. Let's give her one more round of applause.
I'd like to invite up our tomorrow, Miss Talitha Mitchell. Talitha, would you come to the stage? And as I share with her, Talitha is an 11-year-old sixth grader at Rocky Top Middle School. Talitha is going to share with us the poem Tomorrow. Talitha dances with or is in the Denver Children's Choir, and she's a former dancer with the Denver, junior dancer with the Denver Broncos. Talitha Mitchell.
My name is Tomorrow. Today I stand in the power of the present, holding on to the reins of the past, connecting us to a bright tomorrow. I stand to grab a hold of the torch that bears Dr. King's dream, a dream that allows me to stand in proxy to represent all those in my generation, all those in my age group who represent tomorrow. I stand to remind us that as we look back down through the annals of time, we must be grateful. We must remain to maintain an attitude of gratitude. We must always remember to say, thank you. Thank you, Dr. King, for your amazing dream. Thank you to all our ancestors on whose shoulders we humbly stand. Thank you for all the sacrifices you made for my generation and the generations to come. Thank you for teaching us nonviolence as an unprecedented way to win. Thank you for teaching us the power of faith and how to pray and persevere through all of life's adversities. Thank you for weathering the storms of the past that sustain us even to this day. Thank you for blazing trails and opening new doors of opportunity. Thank you for reminding us that though there may be difficult days ahead, troubles like we've never known before, we have a purpose, we have a hope, we have a great expectation for peace in our nation. I stand as a reflection of today, holding on to the wisdom of yesterday, giving us a hope against all odds for a brighter tomorrow. Written by Mrs. Juanita Strong Matthews from her Messages from the Heart collection of Long Beach, California. Thank you.
So now I'm going to welcome to the stage Miss Rosalind Withers. And for those of you who may not be aware, we right now have an exhibit that is at the Dairy Art Center in Boulder, Colorado. And, you know, there's so much to say about this, and I'm certain that Rosalind can do a better job than I can, but I just want to let you know she is the director and conservator of the Withers Collection and Museum and Gallery. And I know she has a lot to explain to us, or at least share with us right now, and I'm hoping that you all will be able to visit this exhibit that's going to be, I guess, out there for the next 6 weeks. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Rosalind to the stage so she can share with us. Please join me in this.
Stands before you today. First of all, thank you, and I'm happy to be in Longmont and Colorado is a place that I've learned to love. I've had some interesting experiences from very high, I must say. So, welcome to the Withers Collection. As you see before you is a vault. And that vault does contain many of our negatives and material. So we're going to give you an invitation to look at a glimpse of that. So as I move forward, first I'd like to introduce you to why I am here. This is my parents, Dr. Ernest Withers, and my mother, Dorothy Withers. They were married for 63 years, and I am of a lineage of 7 brothers, and I'm the only girl of that lineage. I'm very happy to really introduce you to his work today. I'm going to give you some glimpse of what we're talking about when we're talking about the works of Dr. Ernest Withers. Let me give you a little bit of background about what he's known for. He's known as a photographer and also a photojournalist. And you'll see that quite movingly as you look at the type of work that he has left as his legacy. And in looking at his work, you can surely see the journalistic aspect of his work because the categories are very in-depth and very strong in every one of his categories. And that's what makes him so unique. But this is what my family looked like. The top picture that's on the right, we're actually in age order. And as you can see, I'm at the very bottom, the last. And I have 7 brothers. And at the other photograph that's on the bottom, it shows 6 brothers because in 1974, we lost one of my brothers. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't hear me.
Okay, now I'll go back up there too.
Oh, you still, oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm showing things that you can't see. So that I don't block my sound, I understand. So there we are, my 7 brothers and myself. And let's talk about who we are today. The Withers Collection is in a very unique position. It's owned by the family. It's a trust-owned asset. And in our archive, we house 1.8 million images. And I know that's kind of hard to fathom or how hard to really get a glimpse of what that is about. And what's unique also is that it spans 60 years of my father's history as a journalist. What makes it very unique, can you flip to the next? What makes it very unique is that we only have digitized less than 1% of Ernest Withers' body of work. And that is about 16,000 images. So what makes us excited is that we have so many images that are never seen before. So we can literally introduce you to 10, 15, 20 images a day, and we could go for a few years as you will be able to see what's unfolded in this body of work. So it's very exciting to introduce this to the Boulder community and the Longmont community for you to really benefit from the history itself. My father's work has been internationally known. We've traveled and had exhibitions in Montpellier, France, and Germany, and Norway, and various places across the globe. And what really makes us excited is that it helps us to fulfill our mission. The Withers Collection mission is to educate. And of course, the work of educating, when you have 1.8 million images, you have to preserve that work. You have to preserve that body of work. And that's our biggest challenge, is preserving that. And that's our largest cost factor in being able to really digitize that work. We were able to digitize about 12,000 of the 16,000 that we digitized, and we were able to get very close enough in understanding what it costs to digitize that. We have from slides to small images that are in 2x5 all the way up to 4x5 in negative sizes. And from that range, what we were able to know is that it cost us anywhere from $725 to $775 per image to take it from preserving it as a image to be able to, like from a t-shirt, wanting that image all the way up to a mural and preserving it on a building. So we have to be able to preserve it in that range of size, so no matter what someone would need it for, we have it digitized in that measure. Now, what our mission is today more than anything is sharing that work. We have the process of education because we have a museum that is housed on Beale Street, and then we get into the preservation of it, moving into the sharing, and that's what brings us here today, is that we're going to be sharing this body of work with you. Now, this is where we are. We're located at 333 Beale Street. You can actually see a glimpse of the inside of our museum and scope how we actually educate people as they come through the museum. On the front of our museum, it shows 68 I Am a Man. We are working with a feature film in this case, to really tell the story of the sanitation workers. When you visit the Dairy Center to see the exhibition, the first thing that you see when you walk up those stairs is this huge image that shows men holding a sign. And that sign says that I am a man. People have noted that image, but not really know what was the story behind it. So our feature film will really get in depth to that story. And what makes that story so impactful is that it was really a major statement that was being made by sanitation workers, because two of their employees were in the back of the garbage truck, and mysteriously a button was pressed and the two of them were crushed and killed. But the return on that, there was no compensation, no interest in those families, because they were African American men. So as a group, those sanitation workers got together and they said, this is unjust. All we want to be is men. And recognizing that, that's what brought that unity in wanting to really have human rights. They only wanted 10-cent raise, shelter if it rained, and they wanted to be able to shower. Because one of the things that happened at the end of their day, because they were sanitation trash workers, they couldn't even ride public transportation. So it was a very unjust time that took place. So our mission is to really tell that story, and we're excited about it. Now, let me introduce you to the images. Since we're not at the dairy, I'm just going to give you a little snippet of what's there. There are categories, as I mentioned, and these categories are lifestyle. Civil rights is what my father's work is most noted for. And his earliest work in the 1940s is baseball. Because as soon as he got out of the military, that was one of his passions. And it became an entrepreneur experience for he and my mother. But then there's music. And the music aspect of Dad's work, he was the official photographer Stax for 2 decades. So there's a lot of history there. And one of those that's reflected here is Tina Turner. And there were many that came through Stax. He became sometimes their photographer that would go to get their album covers photographed to put on the cover. So we have so many of that history to tell. just to give you a glimpse of what's at the dairy, okay, and showing you this display. That was the Montgomery bus boycott. This is Martin King and the March Against Fear when Meredith was shot. This is the blood stain that was on the balcony after the assassination of Martin King. You can actually see that silhouette of his I'm flipping here and I'm sorry. This is the blood stain. You can see the silhouette of his body there actually. So the next one. This is one of my favorite images. If you take a look at this very closely, she's walking with a sign, and her statement is, "Let us break bread together." But look to the left of that. Even the little boy, he's like, Pictures tell the story. It's quite impactful. This is my favorite. This is the one that actually brings me to you today. As I look at what I do every day, I found this just thrown about on a desk as we were going through the archive, and I kept looking at that over and over and over again. What does that mean? What are we saying here? No white people allowed in zoo today. Is that me they're talking about? So when you look at these images, it gives us a reflection in history. And what I always look at when I look at the reflection in history, it helps us in so many ways in knowing how important it is to know this history, because that's how we're able to look at what was right and make sure we make it better, but what was wrong, correct it so that all of our lives are better. If you look to the left and then you look to the right, you can almost see a dividing line of who's there and what they represented. It's a clear line there, isn't it? Can you read that bumper sticker? On the very bottom it says, it says don't buy gas where you can't use the restroom. Very impactful, right? My favorite, BB. And there was one thing I forgot to mention, and that BB reminds me of that. I love BB because he was such a classy guy. When you look at this is how he traveled, but when you look at the front of his bus, he doesn't call his group a band. He calls them an orchestra. And if you look very closely at every one of his members, the drivers versus the orchestra members, they all had a tie. But the reverse tie was for the drivers, so that there was a distinction of who he was working with or who you would be greeting. This is one of my favorites. This is an image of my father with 5 of my brothers. You'll see that also in the exhibition. They were in a place that we really weren't allowed to go. It was a high-end department store called Goldsmith. They were drinking a drink that we weren't allowed to drink at that particular time because it wasn't offered. We were offered RC Cola, not Coca-Cola. It wasn't available at one time for the black community. Most people don't know that either. But what I'm also proud of is those are my brothers, and look at how impeccably dressed they are. And this is just a glimpse of what you'll see. So I'm inviting you, Longmont, to come to Boulder Dairy Center and see more of what's there. We have over 105 images so that you can really embrace the history. It's an honor for us to share this work. And how did we get here? I love telling this story. It was first done by just a visit. Madeline and
and Donna came to visit. We have a long connection in terms of our families. But what was really interesting is that when she came to visit, she was coming just to tour the museum, and then I took her to the archive, and that's when everything took this tremendous shift. And it was quite incredible because at that moment that I took her to the archive where you're able to physically see what 1.8 million images look like, she had to sit down. And she said, oh, I just can't believe this. She says, let me call. And she called Annette. And she was describing everything she was experiencing. She says, you just can't believe this. You just have to. And it was just a wonderful moment when she called Annette, because that's why we're here today, from that special moment of her experience and really understanding the value and the importance of sharing this work. And then after Annette and I spoke many times, and she's one of my favorite people because of just her focus of the importance of really just human rights and being just. The whole committee with Jude and many others that came, and we were welcoming them because we wanted to share what we have in this history with others, and that's why we're here today. So I thank Madeline and I thank Annette, as well as Jude and many of the other team members, for all of their support. Now, when we dove into the body of work, of course, one of the most iconic images, which you will see, is one of your very own. That's Glenda. She's actually walking in a march after the assassination of Martin King. Very powerful. But as you see her statuesly with many women holding this sign, Honor King, she still has a smile even to this day, carrying that torch. So we thank you. So I'm saying thank you. I'm saying thank you to Boulder. I'm saying thank you to Madeline. I'm saying thank you to Annette. And I'm just excited to be able to share my father's work with this community. Our commitment to you is to share the work, to educate the public, and to preserve the work. That is our biggest challenge, as I mentioned, because of the cost that is involved in taking it from negative all the way to providing it and preserving it so that you'll be able to access it no matter how rapid our technology changes. That's something we're always challenged with every day. But how do we accomplish that? We're a nonprofit organization. We know that we need to digitize all of our images. As I mentioned, we've only done 1%. But we've partnered with many major corporations as a result, and we're excited about our partnerships with Microsoft. We're excited about our partnership with Encyclopedia Britannica because that's really a part of our mission to educate. We want this work to be in every book of education across the globe. And I say across the globe because we are also partnering with a group that is called Canopy Labs. They're out of Denmark. And they are used in the foremost of education and development. And they're going through a major transition right now. Why? Majorly because of the pandemic. The traditional way of teaching has changed from school to being contacted through Zoom, but more digital learning. And here we are, ready to share. So we're excited about those connectivities and those partnerships. And we also have a commercial aspect of who we are, and we're about to enter into a new world that the world has invited us to participate in, and that's the NFTs. And that is a new technology. I'm sure all the young people in here know what that is. And we're learning it every day, but we've been invited to participate in digital art. And so the work will be expanding. And what's exciting about expanding in that arena is that that is our future. That's where they are. So we're going right with them so that this history can be intertwined in the education in every way. So I invite Longmont to walk with me and come to Boulder at the Dairy Center. NAACP, Boulder, thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to be here. It's so good to see you here, and thank you for coming. I'd like to first start by asking, I'm here to introduce Rodney, and I will do that. Before I get to that, however, I'd like you to see a few people. He said, we went to Memphis, and now Memphis is here. But I'd like you to know who some of those folk were. So, if you, the executive committee of our Boulder County branch, NAACP members, would you please stand, committee members? You're here, you thank you. Yes. And as you remain standing, I'd like you, Annette, if you would just come right down here so everybody can see you. Yeah. Annette James, our president. I tell you, he is one awesome leader. Thank you so very much, and thank you for doing that. Thank you so much, committee. I'd also like to point out just a couple of things here. In addition to having our new mayor, Mayor Joan Peck, Longmont is on the move, folks. Just in case you didn't know it, we are on the move. And one of the most significant changes that I am so honored and so proud to be a part of, and getting to know and be a very dear friend, is our first African American, our first black city council person for the city of Longmont, Stan Shakita Yarbrough. Yes. Thank you, and thank you for indulging me with just pointing those very important things out. Release this. Rodney Keith Strong. Well, first of all, I'll tell you that name Strong is just not by accident. He is our first cousin. In addition to that, he is an outstanding man, and an outstanding man that stands. He's a giant. He's a giant among giants. But I'd like you can read all about what he's done and who he is, all of his credentials, on page 12 of the booklet, of this booklet. But I want to tell you a little bit more about Rodney. Rodney, it was said by R. Johnson. R. Johnson, a noted contract compliance contributor in the city of Atlanta, said that any minority who has reached millionaire plus status is as a direct result of the work of Rodney Keith Strong, attorney Rodney Keith Strong. That's a powerful statement, and it's even better because it's true. I want to tell you a little bit about Rodney, the heart of the man.
our father, John and Mother Annie, in their later years, became ill. And before they went to be with the Lord, Rodney never missed an opportunity to come and visit. We lived in the country. We grew up on the farm. So it coming from the city to there, but to come not just from Atlanta, that was one thing, but to take the time to come, and every time he never missed the time to come and visit with them. And that was super special. Now, Rodney and his brother Byron, the only two children, I don't want to say take turns, they have a schedule worked out. Their mother is 96 years old, Aunt Evelyn, and they take care of her. And I'll let him give you, if he chooses to share some of the things he's done. But I know when we were in Memphis for the reception and for the selection of the pieces that are on display at the dairy, Rodney had just taken his mother to visit his father's gravesite. It was, I think, the 20th year anniversary. And what he did, he took her because of the time to visit. He was there. The reception we had, I did not call because I just knew he was in Atlanta. I didn't know he would have been in Memphis. But just think about what he was doing. He was there serving his mother. And I don't think there's a greater honor that you can give, and especially a son, to have that kind of heart. So that's just a little inside information. But Rodney is our cousin. He is attorney Rodney Strong. And I'll give you one last piece of personal information from me. At the time I was working at FedEx, I guess it was about 92. The FedEx Forum was just being launched and built, and it was on the rise. And I knew that they were going through contract compliance issues. I knew the mayor had appointed a group of people just to come up with methods, processes, and means to ensure that contract compliance opportunities were extended. I was in a meeting, and they named the people that would be on that team and who would be heading that team. And the name Rodney Strong came up, and I was like, what? Talk about a proud moment. And from then to his work continues, I am so honored to bring him to Longmont and to present him to you. Please welcome my cousin, and you'll notice sharp, Rodney Keith Strong. So proud of you.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you so much, and it's really an honor. It's a pleasure to be here for the second time. It's good to have family because it allows you to do some things that you might not be able to do otherwise. And I really appreciate this honor of being able to speak to you today and bring a few words on the occasion of Dr. King's birthday. I certainly want to recognize Mayor Peck. Thank you so much. All the other elected officials that we have here, Principal Feinstead and all of his leadership, Dr. Haddad, and all the members of the Boulder County NAACP, just thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And of course, I want to thank my cousins, Glenda, Madeline, Juanita. You know, this is my second time being honored to speak, and so it means a lot to me that you would have me back for a second time. The last time I spoke, I gave what I thought was an uplifting call for justice. The next day, the newspaper said that I recounted a dark history. It reminds me of the time Harry Truman was lambasting the Republicans on his whistle stop tour, and someone in the crowd shouted, "Give them hell, Harry," to which Truman replied, "I'm just telling the truth, and they think it's hell." Any honest recounting of America's racial history causes those raised on a fictionalized version of American history to think I'm giving them hell when I'm just telling the truth. You know, several years ago at a family reunion, I met a cousin who was born and raised in Chicago. This person had never been to Memphis in their life. And I discussed my experiences growing up in Memphis and my experiences visiting the family farm in Atoka, Tennessee. And at the end of our conversation, he looked at me and he said, "Cuz, you close to the root." So what I can tell you is this: Glenda and Madeline and Juanita grew up on the old homestead in Atoka. I grew up 12 miles away in Memphis. And all of us, our first cousins, we're all first cousins, and we are all close to the root. We honor Dr. Martin Luther King today because being close to the root, we lived through the dark days when hope, unborn, had died. We are not close to the root just physically, but also generationally. Both of our paternal great-grandfathers were born enslaved in Virginia. After Andrew Jackson became president in 1829, he was able to push through the United States Congress the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Native Americans were moved west of the Mississippi River in what has come to be known as the Trail of Tears. This led to plantation capitalists claiming the land and force marching thousands of enslaved Africans onto the land formerly owned by the native people. Our great-grandfathers were force marched from Virginia to West Tennessee by their enslavers. Our grandfather, Murtis Sylvester Strong, was born as an enslaved African in 1860. The Supreme Court of the United States in 1857 declared in Dred Scott v. Sanford that Africans, whether enslaved or free, were not citizens of the United States. This case was a proximate cause of the Civil War. After the conclusion of this war, which was the bloodiest war in American history, Africans in the United States became citizens in 1868 upon the passage and ratification of the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Our grandfather was educated at a Freedman School in the basement of a Presbyterian church in Tipton County, Tennessee. He went on to become an educator. He taught and was an elementary school principal in the Shelby County, Tennessee schools for 51 years. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. Our grandfather was always paid less than white educators, and he retired with no pension because the Tennessee schools did not allow African Americans to participate in the pension plan. He and our grandmother sent 2 sons to fight in World War II. My father spent 4 years fighting the Japanese in the South Pacific. Our uncle James Harrison Strong won a Bronze Star fighting in Italy. When they got back to America, they couldn't walk in the front door of a cheap diner in downtown Memphis and buy a cup of coffee. Our parents paid taxes, but they couldn't send us to the University of Tennessee. We couldn't use the downtown library. We couldn't sit on the front of a city bus. We had to sit in the balcony at segregated theaters. We could only go to the zoo on Tuesday and the fairgrounds amusement park on Thursday. We attended racially segregated, underfunded schools staffed by teachers who were paid less by law than their white counterparts. We were born in racially segregated hospitals. If we got sick, we went to racially segregated hospitals. If we died in the hospital, we were buried in racially segregated cemeteries. We, Madeline, Glenda, Juanita and I, and all of our cousins grew up close to the root. For us, this is not history. This is our lived experience. Our parents' generation led the fight for full citizenship for African Americans. Thanks to the sacrifice of our parents' generation and the ultimate sacrifice of the martyrs of the movement, our generation saw public policy change in Memphis and in the nation. During World War II, the African American press, led by the Pittsburgh Courier, started the Double V campaign, calling for a victory over fascism and racism both at home and abroad. The NAACP, led by Thurgood Marshall, began to win legal victories, culminating in the Brown versus Board of Education decision, which overturned legal school segregation. The Montgomery bus boycott, led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was the beginning of a mass movement for social change. The Little Rock desegregation crisis, the Freedom Rise, led by James Farmer, the sit-in movement, led by college students, the Birmingham campaign, the assassination of Medgar Evers, the 1963 March on Washington, the murder of the 4 little girls in Birmingham, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, the March Against Fear in Mississippi, the Black Power movement, the Chicago Open Housing and Economic Justice campaign, Dr. King's Why I Oppose the War in Vietnam speech at Riverside Church in New York City, the Poor People's Campaign, the Memphis sanitation strike, the assassination of Dr. King in Memphis, and the passage of the Fair Housing Act in 1968. In that period of time between the end of World War II and 1968, we saw everything that we had experienced and everything I discussed earlier about the way our lives were changed. We saw it happen, not in a history book, but in real life. These memorable milestones make up what historians now call the classic civil rights movement and are familiar to all students of American history. But you know, Dr. King had a deal he cut with his mentor, Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, who was the president of Morehouse College. And the pact was that whoever died first would preach the eulogy, would deliver the eulogy at the other's funeral. So Dr. Benjamin E. Mays delivered the eulogy at the funeral of Dr. King. And those of us who heard it will never, ever forget it. I was sitting in an 8th grade classroom at Cypress Junior High School in Memphis, Tennessee, and they rolled a TV in and let us watch the funeral. And it's indelibly imprinted in my mind. Not only that, it has gone down in history as one of the greatest orations of the 20th century. And in the most famous passage from that eulogy, Dr. Mays said, "Surely this man was called of God to do this work. If Moses and Micah were prophets in the 8th century BC, Martin Luther King Jr. was a prophet in the 20th century. If Isaiah was called to prophesy in his day, Martin Luther was called of God to prophesy in his time. If Hosea was sent to preach love and forgiveness centuries ago, Martin Luther was sent to expound the doctrine of nonviolence and forgiveness in the 3rd quarter of the 20th century. If Jesus was called to preach the gospel to the poor, Martin Luther King Jr. fits that designation. If a prophet is one who does not seek popular causes to espouse, but rather the causes he thinks are right, Martin Luther qualified on that score. No, he was not ahead of his time. No man is ahead of his time. Every man is within his star, each in his time. Each man must respond to the call of God in his lifetime and not in somebody else's time. So this was the message of Dr. Mays to the world. No man or woman is ahead of his or her time. We each must respond to the call in our own time. And so the question we must ask today in 2022 is, are we prepared to respond to the call of our time? Never has there been a greater challenge to the realization of a multiracial democracy, what Dr. King called the beloved community, than there is at this moment. The forces of white supremacy and authoritarianism are on the march. The conservative cable news talking heads are filling the airwaves with white nationalist bile that you used to have to only find in the ugliest corners of the internet. The great state of Tennessee passed a law outlining what its sponsor calls critical race theory. It passed with no Democratic votes and no African American votes. If a school principal in my home state invited me to speak and I told my history as I have today, he would probably be fired and lose his license to teach in Tennessee. This in the state that is the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan. The first complaint under this new law was filed by a woman named Robin Steenman. She is the chair of the Williamson County, Tennessee chapter of Moms for Liberty. According to the Guardian newspaper, this is what her complaint alleges. The group took issue with several books adopted for younger readers on topics including Dr. King's leadership of the civil rights movement of the 1960s, the integration of schools in California by the activist Silva Mendez, the autobiography of Ruby Bridges, the first black child to desegregate an all-white primary school in Louisiana. This is a quote from the complaint filed with the Tennessee Department of Education. The classroom books and teacher manuals reveal both explicit and implicit anti-American, anti-white, and anti-Mexican teaching, the complaint alleged. The relentless nature of how these divisive stories are taught, the lack of historical context and difference in perspective, and the manipulative pedagogy all work together to amplify and sow feelings of resentment and shame of one's skin color or fear. The complaint also alleges that the curriculum, quote, implies to second grade children that people of color continue to be oppressed by an oppressive, angry, vicious, scary, mean, loud, violent, rude, and hateful white population. This is the white supremacist playbook across the nation today. In November 2020, a multiracial coalition elected Joe Biden, and on January 5th, 2021, in Georgia, we elected 2 Democratic senators, one an African American, the pastor of Dr. King's former church, Ebenezer Baptist Church, and one a young Jewish man. The day after the Georgia senatorial runoff, on January 6th, 2021, the election of Joe Biden was to be certified. Instead, we had a coup attempt. Vice President Kamala Harris had this to say recently: certain dates echo throughout history, including the dates that instantly remind all who have lived through them where they were and what they were doing when our democracy came under assault. Dates that occupy not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December the 7th, 1941, September the 11th, 2001, and January 6th, 2021. The strength of democracy, said Vice President Harris, is the principle that everyone should be treated equally, that elections should be free and fair, and that corruption should be given no quarter. The strength of democracy is that it empowers the people, and the fragility of democracy is that if we are not vigilant, if we do not defend it, democracy simply will not stand, it will falter and fail. Today in Georgia and across the nation, we face the same white supremacist playbook we faced at the end of the 19th century. The Georgia legislature passed a voter suppression bill with no Democratic, no African American votes, and it has been dubbed Jim Crow 2.0. Last week in Atlanta, standing in the same spot Dr. Mays stood in when he delivered the eulogy for Dr. King, President Joe Biden had this to say: Jim Crow 2.0 is about 2 insidious things: voter suppression and election subversion. It's no longer about who gets to vote, it's about making it harder to vote. It's about who gets to count the vote and whether your vote counts at all. So I say to you today that we have come full circle. And now the question that each one of us must answer is, what side am I on? Am I on the side of white supremacy, or am I on the side of the beloved community? Will ignorant racists be able to suppress speech about African American history, or will African American voters be disenfranchised again as they were at the end of the 19th century? I don't know the answer, but I do know this: the answer lies with us. Because as Dr. Mays said, no man is ahead of his time. Our time is now. And the question is, will we answer the call? Thank you very much.
Wow. We are near the end of our celebration. I would like to invite up, we have one more special award that we want to give, and then I'd like to invite up Mr. Arkansas Strider Benston, and we have a special presentation for him. And then Jude Landsman, can you come up as well?
Now, friends and family, Strider Arkansas Benson was born in Tennessee in 1944. He grew up in Arkansas. After having a hard childhood, he found a mission in life as a young student in Alabama. In 1964, he heard Fannie Lou Hamer speak, and soon after that, he joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and moved to Selma, Alabama, where he was arrested numerous times and often beaten viciously for his part in the civil rights movement. He was ostracized in his hometown for his activism, which included marching at the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday, demonstrations in Mobile, Montgomery, and all through the country and state, all through the county and state, pardon me. Other mentors and fellow activists included Annie Lee Cooper, Stokely Carmichael, Reverend C.T. Vivian, Cheyenne Webb, an 8-year-old girl who marched with them daily, Alice West, Harry Belafonte, Ella Baker, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Strider eventually continued his education, achieving his bachelor's and master's degrees. He has always carried the experiences of that era throughout his life and joined in many struggles for justice wherever he has lived. In his own words, "I have carried the light of freedom, which I learned in this great struggle. In every step that I have walked since, as a rank-and-file labor organizer on the docks in Chicago, where I raised my daughters, some of the time as a single parent, as a poet, as a historian, an educator, an activist for peace and democracy, this light has always been my guide. The freedom songs still bring me courage and inspiration. Guide my feet, Lord, while I run this race, for I don't want to run this race in vain." And on behalf of the 2022 Boulder County Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Planning Commission and Committee, we present the Humanitarian Award to Strider Arkansas Benson as a foot soldier who has fought tirelessly for freedom and for justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. We have one other presentation that we have to do. Can you just say thank you? Just come.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This is so neat. Congruent with what you said, my daddy was a freedom fighter and I'm a freedom son. I'll stick right through this freedom fight till every battle's won. Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you on? Yeah, we've done that all forever. Thank you. When Martin Luther King was given his laid hands on him to ordain him as a minister, he said, "I accepted a mission for my community and the community of all peoples for truth, peace, justice, dignity, and love." When they killed Martin and fragmented the movement, I went to Chicago and I had a different life for a while, but I've been in the struggle all my life. And when we won the Civil Rights Act in 1964, we won a whole lot of rights, but you can lose them all if you lose the right to vote. That's what the whole movement in Selma was about, to win the right to vote. And on the march on Bloody Sunday, behind John Lewis and Hosea Williams and Bob Mance and Albert Turner, I was about 20 rows back. After the horse charge, they beat us. We were back in the church, those who were there. and people were just moaning and crying, and then it turned into a hum. Ain't gonna let no tear gas turn me round, ain't gonna let no horses, ain't gonna let no billy clubs turn me round. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking, marching up to freedom land. And then later, Martin was in Memphis, and they said, stay in your lane. Don't talk about peace. Don't talk about poverty. Don't talk about that stuff. That's out of your lane. And that's what Martin said when he first came into the ministry. My job is to bring truth, love, and justice to all people. And I used to run 100-mile races to burn out ancient and current traumas, to raise my spirit, strength, and courage for the road ahead. Let's keep traveling the road ahead and make it right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Me? Yes. So Jude Landsman has some final remarks for us, and then we will close and we will let you go. We thank you so much for your patience and for your time and for listening. And God bless you and God bless America.
Well, I'll speak briefly just about our Boulder County branch, which is so happy to have Longmont in our county. Longmont, as Madeline brought up, is on the move. Greetings. My name is Jude Landsman. I'm chair of the NAACP Boulder County Freedom Fund and Economic Opportunity Committee. Our Freedom Fund was on hold for 2 years because of COVID. We are back in with an abundance of riches of the Withers Collection exhibition that Rosalind so beautifully spoke about. It is a treasure, and it is all events at the dairy for with Walk With Me, sponsored by the NAACP Boulder County branch, which includes you, are free. And they're free for a reason, to promote the education, to promote the unity. It's a gift we freely share. The NAACP, founded in 1909 by dynamic black leaders, Ida B. Wells and W.E.B. Du Bois included, was a diverse group of people, and white abolitionists, Jews, men, women, and our current Boulder County branch, which I encourage all of you to join, is made up of the same sort of feisty group. We are people of all genders. We have dynamic black leadership. We have whites, Jews, people of all faiths, people of all colors are welcome. The only requirement is commitment to the mission to eliminate race-based discrimination wherever and however it shows up, and to promote the equal rights of all persons. And as was brought up so eloquently today, voting. So much of the civil rights movement, it was about the right to vote. That right is under attack. It is under attack. And so today, in honor of the struggle, we ask everyone to sign your name to a petition that we will be sending to President Biden, showing our support for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. There are clipboards outside. I, along with many others, are passionate about this project of Walk With Me, our Martin Luther Day King events, and the presentation of the Withers exhibition, and for the finale, the performance of the Fisk Jubilee Singers from the historic Black University, Fisk University, with a long and important legacy will be performing at Mackey Auditorium in Boulder, also for free, although you would need to register online. We have to keep track of numbers. We are thrilled to have had Rosalind Withers in Boulder with us and in Longmont with us. I would like to extend thank yous to Eric Finistad, to Glenda, to Madeline, to Annette, our Boulder and City Longmont leaders, the dairy, Boulder Surge, which includes Longmont as well, the Standing Up for Racial Justice, our corporate members, our business community is important to keeping this work going and alive. I want to do a shout out to our education person in charge of really trying to get this exhibit to the St. Vrain schools and to the Boulder County schools. It's difficult in this time, so I would say parents, if you can bring your children to come see this exhibit, it is an education in gold. I would like to give a big and special thanks to Madeline Strong-Woodley, Longmont's own, who was an inspiration for bringing the Withers collection to Boulder, for bringing Memphis to Boulder, for bringing Boulder to Memphis. I was privileged to go on that trip. Madeline, whose vision is always big and bold, pushing us to be bigger and better. Thank you, Madeline, for being a trusted advisor from beginning to end on this project. The last thing I'd like to say is about the exhibit. This history, as was stated to you by Rodney, there are those who don't want it to be told. There are those who don't want it to be seen. They don't want it to be perpetuated. Ernest Withers documented this history, and his pictures tell a story, and there is no mistaking what that story is. So I encourage you one and all to take advantage. It's not that easy to bring this from Memphis to Tennessee, and it may not be here again for quite a while. So I encourage you to take advantage of it. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
All right, friends and family, as we celebrate the work of Dr. King, we certainly pay homage to the legacy that he has left and the dream that persists from yesterday, today, and tomorrow. A reminder to approach life's challenges with optimism, and that hope does spring eternal. We would like to thank members of the Planning Committee, Glenda Strong Robinson, Judy Houston, Jude Landsman, Thomas Wyndham, Deborah Richardson, Sandra Daniel, James Hill, Annette James, Adriana Perea, Carrie Adams, Anna Salinas. And a very special thank you to the Withers family, Rodney Strong, and trusted advisor Madeline Woodley. Thank you for joining us here today as we celebrate the life, the legacy of Dr. King.